The result is in for Dr. Jordan Peterson in his legal battle against the Ontario College of Psychologists, and it's a chilling development for the future of free speech. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button, and also make sure to share this video with friends and family. Unfortunately, we are once again being throttled by big tech, so I need your help to get the hopeful message of this channel out to as many people as possible. Now, if you don't know, back on January 3rd of this year, the internationally renowned psychologist Jordan Peterson tweeted out a bombshell revelation that the Ontario College of Psychologists was demanding that he submit himself to what they called mandatory social media communication retraining, which, as the term implies, is clearly a form of Soviet-styled re-education. Among the supposed crimes committed by Peterson online were retweets, yes, retweets of the Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre, as well as tweets critical of the Canadian soy boy Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, one of the most prominent international embarrassments on the planet. According to the College of Psychologists, Peterson's tweets were harmful. Harmful not to any specific person, but just harmful. A conjecture made in accordance with the woke leftist norm of what constitutes harm, and that's enough to warrant subjecting him to mandated retraining to comply with these woke norms. Peterson went on to pen an article in the National Post stating, quote, "I'm not complying. I'm not submitting to re-education. I'm not admitting that my viewpoints, which many of which have been, by the way, entirely justified by the facts that have emerged since the complaints were levied, were either wrong or unprofessional. I have done nothing to compromise those in my care. Quite the contrary, I have served all my clients and the millions of people I'm communicating with to the best of my ability and in good faith, and that is that." And so Peterson took the CPO, the College of Psychologists of Ontario, to court. But unfortunately, as is typical, unfortunately, with Canadian courts when fighting against woke ideology, to no avail. The Ontario Divisional Court basically ruled that the Ontario College does indeed have the right to police Peterson's speech, either in tone or content, precisely because of its potential, and again, that's key, its potential to do harm. And therefore, the court dismissed Peterson's judicial review and upheld the College of Psychologists' order that Peterson undergo retraining in professionalism in communication and public statements. Now, of course, Peterson is appealing the decision. He's not going to comply with it. And he's being backed by a number of commentators expressing their obvious concern over the chilling effects this decision will have on free speech. But something much, much deeper is happening here, something even more ominous, more pernicious, more vile. And it's something that Peterson himself is recognizing and preparing all of us to fight head on. But first, gang, we are literally at the beginning of something utterly epic. Now, if you don't know, dozens of nations have been meeting this week in Johannesburg to discuss a new trade currency backed by gold. And you don't want to miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get in on the action. And we got amazing friends to this channel who can help you do just that. We've partnered with the top-rated precious metals company, Goldco, who've helped patriots across the nation move over $1 billion into gold and silver. That's, you heard that right. That's billion with a B. They're absolutely amazing. Click on that link below. And for those with retirement accounts, the patriots over at Goldco are offering up to $10,000 in free silver when opening up a qualified IRA account. And for cash buyers, you're going to love this. You can get bonus silver just for making a purchase. So if you buy $15,000 worth of precious metals, you're going to get $750 in bonus silver. If you buy $25,000 worth of precious metals, you're going to get $1,200 worth of bonus silver. But that's only as long as supply lasts, so don't wait. Click on that link below. This is your opportunity to get in on the ground floor, the new international turn towards the timeless value of gold and silver. Click on that link below right now. What's happening here with Jordan Peterson is part of an overall process that Soviet scholars call hypernormalization. It's very, very fascinating. It's a very important term for understanding the nature of this ominous development with this demand for Peterson's re-education. It's a term, hypernormalization, derived from studies of Russian citizens' dispositions and inclinations towards the end of the Soviet experiment. What scholars found was that by the 70s or 80s, the Soviet Union was beginning to wane, but the vast majority of Russians, they knew their system was totally corrupt and intellectually bankrupt. They knew they were being lied to by their leaders and the like, and they knew that their leaders knew that they were lying. But, and this is key here, even though everyone knew everyone was lying, they nevertheless pretended to accept the lies. In other words, the lies basically became the social capital of society to such an extent that citizens had no other possible conception of society other than lies. They knew everything was a lie, but they continued to accept the system because their cognized conception of reality could conceive of no other possible reality other than a system of lies. They remained in the system precisely because they found it impossible to imagine an alternative system. It's like a failed marriage that nevertheless persists because the couple has no idea how to end it. That's what's called hypernormalization. It's a fraud that has, in effect, been normalized. Everyone knows that the powers that be are a corrupt fraud, but they put up with it anyway because they simply can't imagine an alternative. And it is precisely that kind of society that these coercive retraining mandates from committees and courts are aiming to achieve. I think we have to understand that cultural Marxists today, like the Soviet Marxists of old, are deliberately attempting to fabricate a society where people comply precisely because they've lost any sense of an alternative to that compliance. I'll say that again. These cultural Marxists today, like the Soviet Marxists of old, are deliberately attempting to fabricate a society where people comply precisely because they've lost any sense of an alternative to that compliance. The purveyors of wokeness and their twisted morality demand a hypernormative world where wokeness is the only alternative. And it's not hard to understand why. And again, Jordan Peterson nailed it on this. Peterson, some months back, published an article where he argued that the culture wars today are largely provoked by virtue of the fact that the left has gone insane. So Peterson in the article brings up the Supreme Court nomination of Ketanji Brown Jackson that was going on at the time, who was nominated admittedly because she was a black woman. And as it turned out, she was someone who didn't know what a woman was. So here we were all enjoined to celebrate the appointment of the very first black woman to the Supreme Court, while at the exact same time we were also enjoined to doubt that there was any objective reality to the term woman. Now, here's Peterson's commentary on this from his reading of the article.
There is a principle, the principle of non-contradiction, acceptance of which, in principle, serves as one of the foundations for the practice of discourse itself. That principle is the assertion that it is fundamentally unreasonable, irredeemably irrational, to claim that A and not A are identical. Why? Well, because if you can claim that a thing is what it is and what it is not simultaneously, then you can claim anything whatsoever. And if you can claim anything whatsoever as true, then it is impossible to talk with you. You have departed from the sphere of reason and reasonable discourse. You have departed from the realm of the rational. This means that you have become deranged. This means that you have become degenerate. This means that all who fail to call you on your deranged degeneration have become rowers on the same doomed boat. This means that you and all those who do not call you out have become insane.
Now, this is the essence of the culture wars for Peterson. It's absolutely brilliant. We are fighting a culture war today because one side, whether we like it or not, one side has gone insane. They are perpetually violating what's called the law of non-contradiction, which states that two contradictory propositions or identities or events, whatever, cannot possibly both be true at the same time and in the same context. It's simply an inviolable logical law. You can't violate it without affirming it. Aristotle used to say the easiest way to prove the law of non-contradiction is to just argue against it. Because the only way you can argue against it is if you argue for one side over and against its opposite. But that's precisely the law of non-contradiction. Two contradictory views cannot possibly both be true at the same time and in the same relationship. In a world governed by reason and logic, you will always have multiple perspectives. Because at the very least, if A is true, non-A is false. You will inevitably have at least two views. If you can say, Dr. Steve is a great guitar player, someone else could come along and say, no, he's not. He's not a great guitar player. And again, that's because of the law of non-contradiction. But what happens when you have a twisted ideology that actually denies the law of non-contradiction? What happens is that it denies the very basis for dissent. And a society that does not allow for dissent becomes the very hyper-normative society of the old Soviet Union. A society that does not allow for dissent plunges into the despair of hyper-normativity. We all know they're lying, but we've lost the capacity to embrace an alternative. That is what Jordan Peterson is ultimately fighting. And we all need to take up that fight right along with him. Are you ready to join the resistance? Because I'm leading a group of dedicated, courageous patriots who can lead a spearhead into the heart of the secular globalist establishment. We punished Bud Light and Target, driven CNN and the legacy media to near bankruptcy, forced BlackRock to backtrack on ESG, and now we're seeing our conservative-dominated Supreme Court ending affirmative action and protecting religious liberty. In my Insiders Club, I show you concrete steps to take locally and online that will only keep this mass uprising going until the battle is won. Don't wait. Click the link in my description below and join my Courageous Patriots Insiders Club today.